Hi everybody, Matt Geary from Geek Pride here, and I'm bringing you another Game of Thrones theory piece, kind of to go along with my Jon Snow one I did last week, but with the added bonus of my dulcet tones ringing in thy ears. So, it's called The Four Targaryens, A Dragon with Three Heads, The Iron Throne, and the End of the Song of Ice and Fire. Now, first off, there are a lot of potential spoilers for the series and books if you haven't watched or read them already. Also, there's going to be a lot of theories being banded around here, so if you carry on reading, it's at your own risk. Thou hath been warned. Still here? Okay, let's continue. The Song of Ice and Fire book and the Game of Thrones TV series are complicated to say the least. Trying to divine or figure out what is going on or what's going to happen next is like trying to predict the lottery. Highly improbable. A matter made all the more conspicuous when you take into account that the series and books, once of the same mind and body, are now diametrically opposed in many aspects, including plotline and characters. Like a great oak that once started as a single stem, then sprouted off into two different gnarled and grim directions, branches would just jut out, and in places merge and go in the same way, but as a whole the tree is, in effect, two separate entities. This analogy will be lost on a lot of those who have only read the books or just seen the series, but for those of us who have waded through the blood, deceit, sex and snow of the both are fully aware and in some cases lament the differences. But it's through this hard toil and dedication to the series as a whole that, in its dark, unyielding and dangerous form, light, clarity and even clues can be seen. It is, after all, known that despite the different directions of both, the endgame, the striving for the end of winter and for the trees' green leaves to bask in the Lord of Light's golden glow, is the same. Martin has even provided Benioff and Weiss how he wants the books, and therefore the series, to finish, and so with a fixed point it would seem that despite all these different paths, there is a dedicated end. Granted, this is Martin and HBO we're talking about, and trying to tie them down to a set ending would be like having Ramsay Bolton tame one of the dragons. Martin isn't one to follow the norm, and HBO will likely follow the path they feel will give them the best ratings. But it is my view Martin hasn't got much left, and to start adding more complications will just prolong something that has taken up so many years of his life. And as much as I'm sure it's a labour of love, it's something I think he will feel he is glad to see the end of. So fixed point it is, a winding path to a joined end, bringing harmony to a series and books alike. Now this is all very well and good, Matt, but what are you trying to get to in this piece? Okay, well, like the dragons, it's coming. There are many big characters within the Song of Ice and Fire, too many to establish a definitive outcome for them all, and the effects they will have on the lands of Westeros and those across the Narrow Sea. I will therefore look at 5 people, who, in theory, could have the biggest impact on the lands of Westeros, and the theory behind some of them being the 3 heads of the dragon, the sigil of the Targaryens. I will also put forward how I feel the series is likely to end, and man, is it a doozy. Right, so, the 3 heads of the dragon, and he, she, who would rule. First up, Daenerys. Now, Dany is pretty much a given for part of the 3 heads of the dragon theory, and another contender for Azor Ahai. She's a Targaryen, she is by title the mother of dragons, of which she has 3, and to cap it off, fire and hot burny stuff doesn't do anything to her. She is also currently the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. Or is she? When Dany was in the House of the Undying, she encounters some different rooms, all giving her visions, some of the past, but some things not yet to come to be. This is where the series and the books differ quite a lot, with the series cutting out major parts, most likely because HBO didn't want future episodes to be ruined. The one scene that is shown, and now we're in season 6 adds up a bit more, is her walking through the Red Keep throne room covered in snow. She reaches out to touch something on the Iron Throne, but then is distracted by the sounds of her dragons and walks off through the wall's main gate. Now this is the wall in the north, not actually the wall of the Red Keep. Is this a foreshadowing of the coming of winter to King's Landing and her need to defend the wall, or is it her saying that she won't have the Iron Throne of Westeros as it will belong to the Snow? Or Jon Snow maybe. Like, quite tenuous, I must admit, but if you look at the vision she has in the tower in the book, it adds up slightly more. In the 5th room, she sees a man who looks a lot like her brother Viserys, but with different coloured eyes and a bit taller. This man, we could make the assumption, is Rhaegar, and he is speaking to a woman who is nursing a newborn child. We make another assumption that this is Ellaria Martell, as he informs her that the child's name should be Aegon. What better name for a king, he says. The lady asks Rhaegar if he will write a song for the child, and he replies that he has a song, and he is the prince that was promised, and his is the song of ice and fire. He then looks right at Daenerys and adds, "There must be one more," and then says, "The dragon has 3 heads." The "there must be one more" line is very cryptic, but we can assume that, as he is talking directly to Dany, that the one more would be the 3rd head. So you would have Dany, Aegon, and Jon Snow. Now, as described in my last article, 5 reasons why Jon Snow is alive, or will be alive, I discussed the major fan theory that Jon is in fact the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. R plus L equals J. Now, I won't go into it in any depth, as many already know this theory, and it would seem, if the series previews are to be believed, that in episode 3 we're going to be shown just that. The Tower of Joy, Ned Stark seeing his sister die in childbirth, and her asking him to look after Jon, or something heavily implying this. The fact that he now lives again, and I called this 6 years ago, can only add credence to this theory. And another, that he is in fact Azor Ahai. Again, see my previous article for this. We also have to think about the visions seen in the series and in the book. The series vision showing Snow in the Iron Throne may well imply Jon Snow as the new king, and therefore the head of the dragon. This being said, going back to the book's vision, Rhaegar may name him Aegon, but he also says he is the prince that was promised and he is the song of ice and fire. This to me rules out Aegon, or Little Griff, as we know him from the books, and what is spoke of him in the series. But what if the woman in the vision was in fact Lyanna, and that Aegon was Jon's actual name, and not the one Ned gave him when he returned him to Winterfell? Say what? Jon is born of ice and fire, ice from his mother's side and fire from his father's. He is the prince that was promised, a Targaryen, a head of the dragon, and a contender for being the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, even over Dany, as he is the only heir of the heir to the throne, and so given him primacy over his aunt. Issue here is, though, he may be the head of the dragon, he may have Targaryen blood, and he may even be the Lord of Light, but he's still a bastard, and so could never be the king while Dany was alive and he wasn't legitimised. That is, unless his real father and mother were actually married. But that couldn't be, right? Rhaegar already married Ellaria Martell. He did, but polygamy, though not common, was not unheard of in Westeros and was practiced. Even George R.R. Martin says that Maegor the Cruel has multiple wives from lines outside his own, so there was and is precedent. However, the extent to which the Targaryen kings could defy convention, the faith, and the opinions of other lords decreased remarkably after they no longer had dragons. If you have a dragon, you can have as many wives as you want, and people are less likely to object. If Rhaegar and Lyanna got secretly married, as well as giving birth to Jon, then they would have a serious succession crisis here. So moving on, Aegon, or Little Griff. Okay, for those of you who haven't read the books, Aegon Targaryen is dead. The Mountain smashed his little brains out against a wall, killed his sister, and because he's a super awesome chap, went on to rape and murdered their mother, Ellaria Martell. The fallout of that you know already. Ouch. Anyway, the book on the other hand has a similar story, but it is very heavily implied and then stated that the character called Little Griff is in fact Aegon, and that he was smuggled out of King's Landing during the sack, where the son of a farmer from Pisswater Bend replaced him. the father having sold his son to Varys for some Arbor golden wine. Now this is a rumour that even Tywin's brother and new hand of the king Kevin started to believe to be true, before he was killed by Varys at the end of the Dance with Dragons. As the books go, Aegon is the rightful heir to the throne, being the son of the heir Rhaegar and therefore also a head of the dragon, something that is backed up by the fact that Varys believes he's the heir and shows that he is being actively manipulating things for his return, which he does at the head of an army. The problem we have with Aegon is that, series-wise, he's not really mentioned and there has been nothing to imply he survived, and unless HBO want to do something out of left field, not a story arc that I think they will follow. Something I feel is due to the direction they are going with another character. Tyrion. There is a theory that, despite the recent media attention, has been around for a while, stating that Tyrion is a Targaryen and the product of King Aerys' lust for Tywin Lannister's wife, Joanna. Now, Sir Barristan in A Dance with Dragons says to Dany, Prince Aerys, as a youth, he was taken with a certain lady of Casterly Rock, a cousin of Tywin Lannister. When she and Tywin wed, your father drank too much wine at the wedding feast and was heard to say it was a great pity that the Lord's right to the first night had been abolished. A drunken jape no more, but Tywin Lannister was not a man to forget such words, or the liberties that your father took during the bedding. Now obviously this would have been too early for Tyrion to be conceived, but it lays precedent and shows that the prince, who was to become king, could have and likely did have his way with Tywin's wife Joanna, later on, and in that union begot a son. Maybe one of the reasons Tywin tortures Tyrion so much. Now this is where the books and the series split apart again. In the books, the above is stated, but that's it. There is no other implications or insinuations toward Tyrion's bloodline, and in fact he starts to have suspicions himself that Little Griff is in fact Aegon. Tyrion plays Little Griff a game of Savas, and after being tricked by Tyrion, he gets angry and kicks over the Savas board. He immediately commands Tyrion to pick up the pieces, and as he's about to do so, he thinks to himself, he may well be a Targaryen after all. It's very likely that Tyrion, in the books at least, will not be one of the three heads of the dragon, or a Targaryen, but will instead be what he has always been, wise counsel, with a bit of a drinking habit. Now the series on the other hand, well, taking into account that Aegon, Little Griff aren't mentioned, or likely to have a story arc outside of maybe one of Bran's visions, then that leaves a bit of a space for a third dragon, wouldn't it? Another character who for some reason was able to confront Daenerys' dragons, take off their restraints and leave unscathed. Dragons are very smart, as Tyrion says, so maybe they know, in the series at least, who he really is. So we'll now move on to the contenders, who's going to get the throne. So we have now got 4 possible contenders fit for the theory of the three-headed dragon, and equally 4 possible contenders for sitting on the Iron Throne. We know that all of them, depending on if you read about them or watch them, fit the proverbial mould, and in my mind it is likely that as the series goes on we will have Dany, Jon and Tyrion, whereas in the books it seems more probable that it will be Dany, Jon and Aegon, or Little Griff. Granted, The Winds of Winter is still to be released and more could change, but as it is, based on the evidence we've presented and the clues at our disposal, these 2 scenarios seem to be quite plausible. Now that being sorted, who's going to sit on the Iron Throne? Well, I guess it's equally plausible, if not slightly icky, that all 3 of them would. Targaryens, after all, do marry within the family to keep the blood pure, and we've noted that polygamy is a thing, especially if you have 3 dragons. More realistically though, if it was down to one person, then you have some rather strong claims, and in Aegon's case and even Jon's, depending if it is confirmed his mother and father were wed, would surpass that of Dany's, her being the sister of Rhaegar and both Jon and Aegon being sons. As it is though, I don't think that Martin or HBO would build up a character like Daenerys only to have her surpassed by another. No. I think she will be queen in one way or another, and the only way I think it will tie in with the whole story and bring a crescendo to the Song of Ice and Fire is if Jon Snow and Dany marry. Icky still, but not as bad, as there at least is a mix of blood there. He's ice, she's fire, and either Tyrion or Aegon, in the books, and if he survives, would be the hand of the king. giving you again the three heads of the dragon protecting the Iron Throne and uniting the land and those across the narrow sea. The end of the song. So we have our plausible three-headed dragon, and so here's where the endgame comes in, and where the winding branches and paths join to become one. This is the theory that I've had for a while, and it might not be one of the most popular ones, but I think it's quite plausible. And having tested it out on some of the actors from Game of Thrones when I've interviewed them, it seems to have gone down quite well. So here it is, the theory. Summer has come after a long and bloody winter. The White Walkers, others have been defeated, and we have our three-headed dragon sitting in power, overseeing the reconstruction of Westeros and the dawn of a new era. But out of the shadows a character appears, a man who throughout the entire Game of Thrones has been playing one side against another, and all for his own betterment and gain. He has allegedly had something to do with the death of the Old Hand of the King, Jon Arryn. He framed Tyrion, betrayed Ned Stark, became Lord of Harrenhal, had a hand in the death of Joffrey, killed his fiancée Lysa, became regent to the Eyrie, and who seemed to have machinations toward the north as well. As time goes on in the series and books, this man's power will grow, and then at the end, just as we think we finally get our happy ending, a resolution, he will kill, or have people kill those who fought to win the throne and save Westeros from the White Walkers. The final scene will be that Peter Baelish, Littlefinger, sitting on the Iron Throne, looking down. The camera pans back and up towards his face, and he looks up and grins. Black, and then credits. And then the internet explodes. Okay, so we've got some reasons behind this, okay, so this will not be a very popular theory, I don't think, because it's just a bit too grim, and after so many beloved characters dying and bad things happening, people need a bit of resolution. But it is because of this that I think it's plausible. Littlefinger has throughout the series and books been power building and manipulating everything and everyone, and he's not going to just disappear, especially as, based on Martin's mindset, or so I believe, a cliffhanger like that is more realistic despite the magic and the dragons, and also is something that would have his masterpiece talked about for years to come. Arguments will be had, nerds will rage, and all the while we didn't see it coming. Now J.R.R. Martin is a big history nerd. He reads a lot, he writes about it, and he based Westeros on it. Now, having a degree in military history myself, I can see this. It's like a cross between the Wars of the Roses and the Roman civil wars. And in history, wars and kingdoms are not often won by heroes of pure heart. No, they're won through Machiavellian cunning, power building, and deceit. Something we all know Littlefinger is more than capable of carrying out. As we sit and watch, and hopefully we'll be reading soon, his rise to power will only become more apparent, and then it will be too late. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We've had our theories on who's going to be the three-headed dragon. We've had our theories on who's going to sit on the Iron Throne, and then we've also had the theory on how the series might end, as controversial as that might be. As always, please give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe, and let us know what you thought. Nicely though, no major nerd rage, it's all theories. Not saying it's definitely going to happen, but I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. So leave us a comment below, and until next time, I've been Matt Geary.